Welcome. You're listening to the Hello Trance podcast, sharing our passion for the music. Introducing your host, Tom Bradshaw.
Hi Global Trance family, I'm Tom Bradshaw and welcome to a special episode of the Hello Trance podcast. This episode features the second in a series of exclusive interviews from this year's Luminosity Beach Festival. First 30 minutes or so, we've got myself in the mix, dropping some fresh new trance and progressive, currently doing it for me right now. Then we head over into an exclusive interview with Dennis Sheperd, direct from Luminosity Beach Festival, by our roving Hello Trance Reporter, Blackburn. You're listening to episode 6 of the Hello Trance podcast. Turn it up.
I step off the train, I'm walking down your street again, past your door, but you don't live there anymore. It's years since you've been there, and now you disappeared somewhere, out of space. You found some better place, and I miss you. Years since you've been there, and now you've disappeared somewhere, like out of space. You found some better place, and I miss you. Like the deserts miss the rain, and I miss you, yeah. Like the deserts miss, I miss you, and I miss you. Like the deserts miss the rain, and I miss you, yeah. Like the deserts miss the rain, deserts miss the rain.
You're listening to the Hello Trance podcast, sharing our passion for the music. to the Hello Trance Podcast. Tom Bradshaw in the mix. listening to the Hello Trance podcast, sharing our passion for the music. Tom Bradshaw in the mix.
up, it's over to our roving reporter, Chris Blackburn. Here's an exclusive interview with Dennis Sheperd, recorded live and direct from this year's Luminosity Beach Festival.
You're listening to the Hello Trance podcast, sharing our passion for the music.
Today I'm joined by an artist who is no stranger to the trance world, having 4 album releases under his belt, with his most recent on Black Hole Recordings, and we'll dig into what a soundcation is. A big Hello Trance welcome to Dennis Sheperd,
yes,
otherwise
correct.
known as Dennis Sheperd. I got it right. Fantastic.
Yeah, you did. Awesome.
Thanks for joining us today. Great to connect with you for the first time, face-to-face, Thursday during the kickoff of the 14th edition of Luminosity. But a little fun fact to fans, that our conversation started back in January after you were auctioning your MacBook on eBay and the winner flaked out. And so I was like, hey, I got to take home the prize anyways.
Exactly.
So, thanks to all the lovely shipping carriers that have an issue with packing lithium batteries in airplane holds. I was not able to get it until this very moment, and now it is in my hand, so I'm super excited to start to dig in. I've been a Windows person all my life, so digging into Mac and Logic, since everyone says Logic's really good for production.
Yeah, you will love it. I switched to Mac in 2017, and yeah, I would never go back.
And I'm Microsoft guy by day. That's what I do. I do consulting. I'm an Android guy, but I'm turning to the dark side. So again, thank you for the laptop. I always like to start off my interviews with my favorite question. As a fellow music lover and artist, our origin stories are very much a part of the journey and what helps shapes us into who we are today. Can you tell us about that first memory and that first track that you heard that made you fall in love with trance?
Yeah, that was actually, end of the 90s. One of my best friends in school, he showed me the electronic dance music genre. So there was like a radio show on the local radio station the radio station was called 1 Live, and there was a radio show hosted by Blank & Jones.
Oh,
yeah,
legends.
So yeah, even regional legends where I come from. So, and yeah, they had a track called The Nightfly, and remember the long extended mix of like 9.5 minutes
On the radio?
Yes.
Oh wow.
And, well, they had like a special like mixed radio show like Saturday nights, and yeah, they played the long 9-minute version, and I just remember closing my eyes and yeah, absolutely falling in love with this sound. And from that day on, I think for the next weeks or months, I listened to that track every morning before starting my day.
Motivation.
Just laying on my bed, closing my eyes, and just like, yeah, dreaming away.
I had one of those moments in the 90s where I actually was coming to Amsterdam for the very first time with my dad. I knew nothing of electronica, and on the little headset radio, it was the dance station. It was Olives, You're Not Alone. So It's always amazing to kind of transport ourselves back to that very first moment and kind of remember those memories, and those memories feel to kind of where we are today.
For sure.
So then let's fast forward. So you love music, and then how did you go from a music lover to a artist?
So actually, after that, I kind of switched genres a little. So I went on to listen to hip hop and R&B because that was cool when I was a teenager. And then I got back to electronic dance music around 2004. But it was more the commercial side of it, like hands-up genre, commercial trance genre. And then my uncle started producing music, but like as a hobby. And it was really like super simple amateur software, like DanceJ, it was called back in the days. You just put blocks together and that's your song.
Like Legos?
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this sounds so good and like so professional. Let me have a try as well. And I did try, and for I think I played around for like 9 months and registered with an online community and where you can upload your songs and rank like really high in the charts there. And then people told me, oh, you should try professional software. And I actually did. I started with Pelahed's Reason, and I sticked around with that one for around 1.5 years or so. And then I got my first record signed. So it's always like, when I do something and I really fall in love with it, I have such a big passion for it that I always want to get better at it. So it was just a natural progression from doing it as a hobby to signing it to smaller record labels, then bigger, more successful record labels. And so just started like that, basically.
So let's talk about one of those labels and that first release you had on the NPFS record days. Kind of talked a little bit about Uncle helping you be that inspiration. But then fast forward to getting into Reason. What was that first track and the story behind that kind of comes to mind with that first release?
So actually the very first release was under a different alias called Sky Sheperd. So there was before
that. Yes.
Yeah, before that
Yeah.
Sheperd. And there was like a remix contest that I won, and as part of the contest, because I made it to the first place, I got pressed on vinyl and it was released on a record label called ZYX. And
It's a Talus.
yeah.
Talus, yeah.
Well, the Tala is part of that label, let's say. And yeah, that was massive for me. I mean, being printed on vinyl, and yeah, it was amazing. And then I did another record under that alias on Shah Music, which is the label of Roger Shah's brother.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Pedro Demar.
Oh, okay.
And he runs that label, or used to run that label. And that was also the first time I got in touch with Cold Blue,
Yes.
because he remixed that track. It was called Closer. There was a Cold Blue remix on Shah Music. And that was my first real like trance release. And then I had another alias called Metricide, which was more like a house alias. We had a really massive hit in 2006. And then 2007 I decided, okay, I want to start a progressive trance project. And I started under Dennis Sheperd. And then MPFS Records was just a very small indie label, very passionate guy who ran it, who was willing to invest into us artists because he believed in us. And it was literally like 10-15 releases over the course of years only. There were like people like Criado, they were signed there, Alucard was signed there, I was signed there then, and then even Sonic Element. I don't know if you know who that is.
The name sounds familiar.
Yeah. He's like an uplifting trance producer. I actually discovered him on MySpace, and we got him signed to MPFS Records. That was his first release.
The old MySpace days. I missed those. Those were simpler times.
Yeah, for sure.
So then after that first release, and you talked about moving into that Dennis Sheperd project, fast forward down to 2022, and you released Onwards. And I'm guessing that are those the slashes?
Yeah, it's like onwards, upwards.
So
onwards and upwards, you can whichever one to wait.
It almost looks like it's like pointing up to the sky, which I think is proper. It's upwards.
Yeah.
So now that's your fourth album, and 12 of those 14 tracks were collaborations with a myriad of artists. Two of which of my current favorites are Justin and Cedric.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give us a little bit of background on that specific title, how that plays into your personal life, and then maybe a favorite story about one of the tracks and how it was made?
Sure. I mean, so when I start creating an album, it's literally just like collecting ideas.
Yes.
So I have a lot of ideas, and I just start brainstorming, putting them in one folder, and some of those ideas, they really come to life later on. Others never really make it to a full tune.
In the graveyard.
Exactly. Yeah. And like every track is a whole different story. Like sometimes, I work on the instrumental, then I send it to a singer, then the singer works with me on the lyrics and sends it back. And sometimes it's like I get an a cappella from a singer and I build the track around that a cappella. So it's always different. Or sometimes just an instrumental. Probably my absolute favorite track of the album is a track called Limitless. That's with Eke and Coney Blank, and it's just
You're smiling. You've got a good story.
yeah, it's basically the love song of my girlfriend and myself.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that.
And yeah, it's just that the lyrics are they were so fitting when we met each other, and yeah, I know. Just like there's magic in that track. It's hard to describe what makes this track so special, but it's really just like the lyrics, the feeling, then connecting it to an emotion and the memory, and yeah.
Would you say that you were, as a parent myself, would you say that each of those tracks are almost like their own child? They have their own story, they have their own emotion, they have their own feeling and history behind them?
Yeah, absolutely. And like some people ask me also, don't you lose track? You have to release over 100 tracks, and will you not forget, like, let's say the track title or whatever after a while? And no, it's just like you hear the melody and immediately
You transport it back.
So,
and then as a producer, you have 4 albums under your belt now. And to say underselling the effort of any single track would be an understatement. But it seems that you've mastered the formula, not only with working with artists, but also putting together an album. So I was actually talking to Bix. So this is totally off the cuff right now. So I was talking to Bix. He's got, like you, a whole collection of different tracks, and what is looking to put together an album. I was like, funny story, I'm actually going to be talking to Dennis, and he's done this multiple times, so he kind of understands what happens. So the question here is, can you give the fans and listeners, and this is a little industry behind the scenes information, what's that 10,000 foot view from that first creative process to actually having and seeing that track on paper?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So first of all, you have to, I mean, you work with different people, right? Like, you may have a guitar sample in there. You get a guitarist to record a guitar sample. So you have to sign a contract with that guitarist so that he transfers the rights over to you. You have to sign a contract with the label. I also know what happens on the label side because I used to run a label. So they have to sign an ISRC code. They have to send out DJ promos. They have to sign the contract with you. They have to put it in their distribution database so it gets distributed to all the stores. So yeah, there's just a lot of stuff happening on that side. Then you, as an artist, have to register it also with your collecting society. So that could be BMI in the US,
sure,
or Boema Stemra in the Netherlands, and they take part of the composition part of the record. And yeah, like that's just like the administrative side. And then obviously creative side is, well, you start with an idea and then you start, like playing around.
Collection of ideas that you mentioned.
Yeah, exactly. And personally, I'm approaching this very intuitively. So like, it's just like, don't have a plan. Like, oh, tomorrow I have to work on this track or that track. It's more like a rush of creativity. And sometimes it's just like at 1 a.m. I'm like, let me give it a try, like.
Was this, you were awake till 1 a.m. or you woke up?
No, I'm still awake. So it's like, let me give this a try and see if this works. And then all of a sudden there's like a creative rush, and I sit there in my studio until 4 or 5 a.m. and the track is finished.
Oh.
So it's like, but that could happen after a day of creating the idea, or it could be months later. Like,
to replenish that creative fuel tank and then putting together a track. It's like, all right, now that tank's empty and just going through life helps to
for sure
recreate that or refill that.
I think as an up-and-coming producer, the worst thing you can do is put pressure on yourself creatively.
That's good advice, because that's where I am right now.
Yeah, you just need to go with the flow and try to do other things that kind of give you the creativity in the studio. Yeah.
So you go through all of the motion, you do the administrative side, you pull together all of these different collections of stories which become tracks, and then you release that album. Once that album is done, that sigh of relief, what are you like, okay, what's next? Or are you just kind of going with the flow of the creativity as you start to collect more of those ideas and transcribe them?
Yeah, I mean, between Find the Sunrise and Onwards and Upwards, it was really, after I released Find the Sunrise, I was already like, I want to do another album. It was so cool and like, it's so much fun. And so now, after Onwards and Upwards, I wanted to take it a bit easier. So I decided to just do single releases for this year.
Sure.
But now
the singles can become an album. Right?
No, I'm already starting to collect ideas again. And it's just, there's so much creativity happening that, yeah, that's why I'm happy that I have this output under Dennis Sheperd to just like release all of these creative ideas.
And then those come individually, and those come all at once. So, and as you start to think of production, and you, like I mentioned earlier, you've released a lot of tracks and albums, you've kind of got that mastered. Let's talk about production in general and how you've learned and been able to help others. And that's through your soundcations, formerly the Trance Retreats. And you've had over 10 of those now. One of my favorite stories from this is I'm good friends with Adam Stark. He immersed himself in your Trance Retreats, got connected to Roger Shaw. He's helping him with Magic Island. He's doing a lot working with Ilan Bluestone. I think a lot of that was foundationally in just that confidence of being in the music and having someone to mentor them. So tell us a little bit about that value of what you see in those, I'd say, boot camp style learning experiences. And then a favorite story The one I didn't tell.
Well, I mean, first of all, it's an amazing experience. You have a lot of fun while being on those retreats. But then what do you get out of it? Like, first of all, you can make a lot of producer buddies that will help you push to higher levels. You can support each other, just become buddies, and like you give each other feedback over the years, and you just see each other grow, and that's great. But you also have the chance to hang out with instructors and become friends with them. Like there's a lot of participants that became friends with the instructors and met the instructors afterwards when they were touring the city or this or that. I mean, this is not guaranteed, but if the chemistry is there, it's always a possibility.
If you put the effort into it as well.
Yeah, exactly. And then obviously, I mean, production techniques you learn there, it's not comparable to watching YouTube videos or anything like that, or doing online courses. Just because you're there, you see this technique, and then maybe something is unclear, you can immediately stop the instructor, ask what does he mean exactly, and then it becomes clear in your head. And it's like beginner producers get a lot out of it, but even advanced, intermediate and advanced producers get a lot out of it. So I personally even learned a lot on these retreats, just watching the other instructors, because you always take a little bit from each and every one of them, like small tips and tricks here and there. And that made me this fast and good producer that I am today, learning all these things from these guys as well. So I would highly recommend it for producers who are really looking to take their skill level to the next level.
That allows them to grow without making the mistakes, and the window of how their mistake is made is smaller, because then they can correct.
I think they can just skyrocket their progress, but I think they will still make mistakes, and that's actually, in my opinion, even good, because you have to make mistakes to learn, become a better person and a better producer, and so on.
That's how we learn and grow. Any favorite success stories?
Oh yeah. Let me think. Wow, there's so many. Like there's so many people that have skyrocketed in their career. Like, okay, there's Criado.
Oh yes.
Started collaborating with Maarten after those retreats.
Okay.
There's Chris Gray, who is an Italian guy who started releasing on flashover recordings and other labels. There's George Hammer, who started collaborating with me and releasing on Blackburn recordings on FSOE. There's Yellow, the co-founder of the Soundcation. He learned a lot on those retreats as well, because he was the kind of beginner producer when we started organizing those retreats. And he's now releasing also on labels like Subculture and Magic Island and so on. Tom Bradshaw is another one who started releasing on Magic Island regularly now. So there's just so many people that really, skyrocketed their career, and I'm so proud and happy.
I kept my eye on them and trying to find the ones that are like near. I know you did one in Bali, you've done some in the EU, you've done some around ADE.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
The next one is actually, again, before ADE.
Okay, in October.
Yeah, in October, exactly. This time in the centrum of Amsterdam. The years before, we used to do it in a small village outside of Amsterdam, but we figured it's much easier and more convenient to do it in the center of Amsterdam. And then that's it for this year. Next year, we're not sure yet. Maybe one long retreat again, somewhere where it's warm and nice and inspiring. And then for sure the ADE retreat again.
Sure.
Yeah.
Is that why it's in places like Magic Tropical? I was going to say Magical Tropical. It's kind of the same thing, where you pick those places because you see that it fuels some of the creativity a little more?
For sure. Like we always pick like extremely creative spots, but it doesn't have to be connected with sunshine. It can also be, for example, we did one in Berlin in a castle.
Sure. Oh, that's amazing.
So that's really amazing. Yeah.
Well, those sound awesome. I definitely will have to check it out, and for all of the fans, definitely check those out on the socials as well. One final question as we get near to, we're getting near to Zandvoort. We're actually doing this in the car. If you hadn't pursued music, what do you think you'd do? What do you think you might be? And I ask this question to a lot of artists because, they love their career, and music is such an amazing career. I would love to actually be in music if I didn't have three boys, 2 dogs, a wife, and a house.
So yeah, it's a close call, I think. But I think I would be a chef.
A chef?
Yeah, I love cooking.
Food
I love hosting people, and yeah, between that and being like a personal trainer, like doing the fitness stuff. So these two are like my passions next to the music.
Yes.
Yeah, I think one of my main job, like music production.
Food is a great choice. I absolutely love traveling because of the new foods that we try.
Absolutely. I was just in Italy. They had the best pizzas.
Pizzas are huge. Walk by the shops and it's like a giant, 2 meter by 2 meter square.
And my favorite dish is the Napolitanian pizza, and I recently tried it at home, and I actually succeeded. I was so proud of it.
Fantastic.
But it's very, very hard to get the dough the right way, but I got it right for the first time ever in my life. So quite proud of that.
Well, there you're already on your way. Your side passion. Awesome. Well, thank you, Dennis. Appreciate your time. And
thank you for having me.
Hope to catch you again live soon or in a soundcation. Maybe even ADE. It's not out of the cards yet.
Yeah, awesome. Cool.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
You're listening to the Hello Trance podcast, sharing our passion for the music.
Massive thank you for listening, streaming and supporting the Hello Trance podcast. Remember, you can catch brand new episodes every first and third Tuesday of the month. Playing you out of this episode is Dennis Sheperd and Cold Blue featuring Anna Criado, Fallen Angel, the Dennis Sheperd Club Mix. Catch you soon. Cheers. See ya.